Well, good Friday morning, everybody. It is January 22nd, and it's Friday. So I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. It is a sunny morning here in Lake City, Iowa. So praise God for that. Um, Today we are continuing to work our way through the 20th chapter of Luke. We're going to look at verses 20 to 26 today. And this is the story of the question about paying taxes or paying tribute to Caesar. And it's a story that is in all three of the synoptic gospels. It is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, of course. We're talking about it in Luke today. The people that are coming to Jesus are just identified as being spies. So they watched him and sent spies, and they isn't necessarily defined more than the scribes and the priests and the elders and whatnot. But in Mark or Matthew's gospel, rather, it is the Pharisees and the Herodians that come to see Jesus here in this exchange. So there we have it identified, and that gives us a little more insight when we're dealing with Matthew's version of this story. So we'll talk about that if I remember to. So let's look at, Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 to 26 today. So they watched him and sent spies who pretended to be honest, in order to trap him by what he said, so as to hand him over to the jurisdiction and authority of the governor. So they asked him, "Teacher, we know that you are right in what you say and teach, and you show deference to no one, but teach the way of God in accordance with truth. Is it lawful for us to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But he perceived their craftiness and said to them, "Show me a denarius. Whose name and whose title does it bear?" They said, the emperors. He said to them, "Then give to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And they were not able in the presence of the people to trap him by what he said, and being amazed by his answer, they became silent. So, here is another time where Jesus is just like when they're asking by whose authority. He answers a question with a question. But here they answer it, probably out of fear of not answering it. But this is again, we'll back up to the beginning here. It says spies. In Matthew's gospel, it says the Pharisees and the Herodians. Now, that is a strange mixture of folks. The Pharisees, of course, are by the law, the letter of the law. And the Herodians, of course, are followers of Herod. Now, we don't really know which Herod. We don't know a lot about the Herodians, but we know that they're collaborators with Rome. So you've got the Pharisees who would very much not like collaborating with Rome. Now, the Sadducees, that's a different story. Those are the priestly caste. But the Pharisees, they really would rather not have the Romans there by any means. They don't want the Romans there. Not that they wouldn't rather. They don't like the Romans there. The Herodians are collaborators. They're working with the Romans. They are followers of Herod, and Herod, of course, he had his position, frankly, because he was being a collaborator with the Romans. That's how he had his position. That's how Herod was king. If it weren't for the Romans, he wouldn't have had that job. He wouldn't have had the position. He wouldn't have had the power. He wouldn't have been a figure in history at all. I probably would have never seen him. So there we have in Matthew's gospel that opposition. What a strange pair of people to come together. And this is what you will see is when you start seeing these strange alliances like that, these people that are really mortal enemies coming together to attack another, that should make you go, what is it about this one that is so threatening to the status quo for these other two? And should pique your interest, and you should pay attention. Even today we need to do that. But nonetheless, here we have that going on with Jesus. They're both attacking these two diverse groups. And of course, the thing we have to realize also when we're looking at Jesus and his followers, we talk about his followers. Now, many scholars think that Matthew was a Herodian. And I don't know that I can say that, but it's possible he was a tax collector. And then you go all the way past that. Of course, I believe, and many other people believe, that Jesus himself was a Pharisee. But then you go past that and you have people like Simon the Zealot, and then some think that Judas Iscariot was a zealot as well. So the zealots would have been very anti-Rome. So if you have Matthew here, a tax collector, a Herodian, someone that was a collaborator with the Romans and the zealots, look at the people that Jesus is able to bring together. And to get on the same page and to become Christ followers. That's a thing about Jesus, and I mean, he caused division, but he also caused communication and blending and bringing together these very, very opposed people. Okay, it's interesting. But here we have them trying to trap him, because if he says to not pay the tax, okay, then the Romans are going to come for him. And if he says to pay the tax, then those people that are looking for him as the Messiah, the one to overturn Rome, they're not going to be, they're going to go, wait a minute, what's going on with that? And so he gives us this very perplexing and peculiar answer of rendered unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And the thing we have to remember about this is, first of all, we know the story about that he catches them out. The old thing about do as I say and not as I do. It's not a new thing, folks. Here, these guys, and especially if they're a Pharisee, if they're a Herodian, it's one thing. But if they're a Pharisee and they pull out it, when Jesus asked for a coin, they pull out a denarius, they're in the temple. You're not supposed to bring a graven image into the temple, and those denarius would have borne the image of Caesar. Now, we get into, as in all things scriptural, we have scholars that get into great long debates of the minutia of the whole thing about as to what Caesar is on the coin and what coin it actually is. They call it a denarius, so it's one of the coins to one of the Caesars. It could have been 90 years old and had Caesar, Augustus on there. But at any rate, I back up. But it would have been, it's a denarius. It has one of the Caesars is on there, and there's also inscription that whether depending again on which coin it is, that would identify, but nonetheless, it still would identify Caesar as divine. That particular Caesar as divine. Either the original Caesar as being God. There was the cult of the emperor at that time, where they worshipped Caesar, the emperor, as being a god. And so there is, not only do you have a graven image in there, but you have an inscription that proclaims a false god. This is not something you want to bring in a temple, not even something you really should, as a devout Jew, should have in your pocket or your satchel. But nonetheless, they did, because that was the currency of the day. So he caught them out for having this in the temple area, right? And we know that story. But it's a thing, giving allegiance and identifying Caesar as being divine, okay, as being God. And so that's a problem for them. But here he really catches them up, because what's the thing about money? Even gold coins. What gives gold its value? It's the value we imply on it, we imprint on it, right? You can't eat gold. It's pretty tough to find enough of it to build a house out of it, for pity's sakes. You can't burn it unless you've got a really hot smelting fire. I guess you could burn it, but you're going to have an awful lot of fuel to get your fire hot enough to burn the gold. And that's not going to happen well. It's really going to melt more than burn. But so it's really, when you look at gold, when you look at it, what practical value does it really have? It's pretty, but that doesn't keep you alive. That doesn't give you shelter. In real world, the things that have value are food and water and shelter and tools that you can use to produce more food, or weapons you can use to protect yourself. These are things that have inherent value. Clothing, that kind of thing. Gold we imprint that value onto that gold. We give it that, same as the coins in our dollar bills in our pockets, which aren't even backed by gold anymore, folks. I don't know if you know that or not. Getting into economics, they're backed by nothing but the reassurance of the government, which isn't necessarily very good anymore. But it will not get into that either. But it's the same thing. Even if it's backed by gold, gold doesn't have any real value in an innate sense. So this thing that they are presenting to Jesus is a coin. The only value there is a value that human beings place upon it. That's the only value it has, that we place upon it because of some desire or some lust, if we will, or some ego, some envy, or whatever we have about it. We generate that value in our mind. It's not real. Things that have real value are human beings, human life. We're created in the image of God. Things that feed us physically, things that feed us spiritually. And here it's about God, and it's about that feeds us spiritually. So it's the word of God. Give to God what is God's. So, not saying that you don't need to tithe, because unfortunately we live in a flesh and blood world, and so we do have to buy and sell things and help other folks, so we need the money, so there's that issue as well. But the reality is give to God what is God. You are God's. Give you to God. So that's the message for today. Render unto Caesar what is Caesar, and render unto God what is God. You're God's. Give your all to God. So with that, I'm going to let you go. Have a very, very blessed day. Tomorrow is Saturday. We'll have a Saturday edition. I may or may not be over at the office. I may stay over in the parsonage. I don't know. But we'll see you at 9 in the morning tomorrow, and then we will see you Sunday at 10 for worship. And remember, we are having worship in the sanctuary. You're very welcome to come, and we do not have a mask mandate. You can wear a mask if you want. You don't have to if you don't wish. We do ask that you do social distancing and that you maintain that, and we ask not to shake hands, the old elbow bumps or whatever you want to do, or the virtual hugs from across the room. That works fine too. So, or just a wave. Hey, wave. That works too, old-fashioned. Country person, we should be able to wave, can't we? We can do that as we drive a pickup truck down the gravel road. We can do that in church too. So, at any rate, see me in the morning, and then we'll see you Sunday. Have a blessed day, and be a blessing to someone today. Bye-bye.